classics. Boo. That's okay. There is. I should have a graphic of Cat's Cradle up and around, but I currently just don't have it here. The general consensus is that Cat's Cradle didn't really land with all of us at all. So we're just going to do a live chat about this. Hopefully it's just like cutesy little fun, talking about life. We'll touch on the book. I've got TikTok open and Twitch open so the chat can be available should we need it. Terry, thank you for 64 months. 64 months is so impressive. I'm still getting slight background noise, Darian, from yours.
Oh no.
Oh no. Slight background noise. Let's get stuck into it. I've got notes in front of me. It's not a Wikipedia. Someone accused me recently of only not reading the book and just reading the wiki and trying to have a 2-hour discussion about it. It's not true. I read the book. I just didn't really obtain the book. This time around, though, it's Cat's Cradle, which was written in 1963. It's Kurt Vonnegut's darkly comic novel about science without ethics, the illusion of meaning, and humanity's talent for self-destruction, framed through a fictional religion, apocalyptic technology, and a deeply unserious people facing very serious consequences. Told with deadpan humor and bitter irony, Vonnegut's cult tale of global destruction preys on our deepest fears of witnessing Armageddon, and worse, surviving it. Dr. Felix Honecker, one of the founding fathers of the atomic bomb, has left a deadly legacy to the world, for he is the inventor of Ice-9, a lethal chemical capable of freezing the entire planet. The search for its whereabouts leads to Honecker's 3 eccentric children, to a crazed dictator in the Caribbean, to madness. Felix Honecker's death wish comes true when his last fatal gift to humankind brings about the end. That for all of us is nigh. Let's go around. Out of 5, what you giving this one and why? Who wants to go first? Unmute. Let's chat.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go Vaden and then academic.
Okay. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5, so I think I'm one of the few people who actually liked the book club. I just thought it was super funny. There's so many really, really good lines. Like the descriptions were just like out of the world of people. Like the way the author described like people's personalities is so just absurdist and just lovely, and just the mockery was just amazing. I love it. Like no one's spared in this book. No one's like, oh, this is a good guy. This is a good person. No, everyone's terrible in different ways, and I found it like darkly hilarious. And there was a lot of fun analogies to like other classics and other references to the real world, which just for me is kind of hard to get sometimes, but I enjoyed them.
That's good. I like that you kind of got the satire of it and then it worked for you. For some reason, Twitch is not streaming, and I don't know why. I don't know what to do about it. And frankly, Twitch, I've hated you for a little bit now. So
Twitch is streaming just fine on my end.
Mine's saying it's offline when I look at it. Oh wait, I'm on now.
Yeah,
Hey,
we were
Maude.
watching the whole time.
Oh, good-o. I stand by what I said, even though I'm slightly corrected. Twitch, even though I'm slightly corrected, I'm still a bit shitty with you. That's how I feel today.
Fair enough.
Academic, what are you giving this 1 out of 5?
I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5. I like the vignette style of presentations of the different chapters. I love the pissant discussion.
I did too.
and how that sort of played out over time. But like the style overall, storytelling style of the book just didn't hit with me. The narrator wasn't great. Wasn't the worst that I've experienced, but wasn't great.
Are we talking actual book narrator or the audiobook narration style?
Audio book narration.
Oh,
style.
he sounded like he was a PBS from 1963. It was really hard to recognize the satire from his narration style. It felt like he was, yeah. It was like, hello, kids. Let's talk about why the world's ending. And you're just kind of like, all right.
Well,
I
it
did
sort
not
of
like
reads sort of
narration.
like Voltaire's Candide, which is like a really old book, similar more classic-y, and it's just like, oh, you're all of these are real characters that are acting in absurd ways and in like what should be somewhat mundane situations for the majority of the book. So, I, yeah, eh, whatever. Two.
Mine was 2.5. I feel exactly the same way. It had some interesting moments. I really got bogged down by like the fact that it was 1963 and there were descriptions of women, themes around women, themes around ethnicity that were incredibly antiquated and slightly hard to stomach. But when you're going to have our narrator fetishize a barely adult, barely woman, I'm out. I'm fucking out. I don't care if it's 1963 or now. That is a way to just make me tune out. But you know, there's even satire and discussion to be had around that as well. Which was she supposed to be that way? Were we supposed to feel a bit uncomfortable? Blah blah blah. You know, antiquated language around what's appropriate and what's not. And I understand that, you know, I'm not going to hold an author accountable to today's standards when it was 50, 60 years ago. Like, that's not how this works. I'm pretty sure that when I was doing a radio show 15 years ago, what I thought what was appropriate then isn't appropriate now. You know, I know that the bar moves. I just don't have to enjoy it reading it today. Jeff says, I dropped by to say thumbs up. Vonnegut's brilliant. Bye now. I love that you love it. I love that you love this book. The entertainment vibes were strong with the narrator. The edutainment vibes, sorry, says Toaster Poster. Yeah, I wasn't really in the mood of edutainment. I kind of wish we got a little bit more satirical kind of like feels from that, because I'm not sure the narration style matched the content of the book. I don't think it was a good partnership. Hence me 2/3 of the way through actually getting the copy of the book and wanting to just read it. I'm exactly the same with you, Academic. I think the vignettes were actually really palatable. Every chapter was 1 to 3 pages, really, and it was like quick slices. My issue is it never, if not rarely, felt like anyone was in the same conversation. It kind of felt like someone would be like, hi, what's on the menu today? And the other person would be like, I drove a car here. And they would respond being like, we've got hot dogs or pizza. Yeah, but the weather's a bit cold. And you're just like, the fuck? What are you guys talking? What are you talking about? And I'm like, am I reading this book properly? So that to me felt a little difficult to follow because it just didn't really have very much flow in terms of coherency for me.
Yeah, it's like a lot like a non sequiturs. Like it doesn't transition from one topic to the other topic. It's just all of a sudden jump.
And it's quick chapters anyway. Robin's in here. Hi, Robin.
Hi. I'm wondering if it's just because you listen to it versus reading it, because when you read it, like you can see clearly it's a new chapter, so you're like, okay, we're going on to something else.
Right. Yes and no. The new chapters, they would announce the chapter in the title, and I liked that it had the chapter in the title. And I liked that because the chapters were so short, the title was really on the nose. Because it was like, hey, this is literally the title of the conversation we're about to have. I don't think that the narration did help because of the edutainment sort of tone that he had with it. But it was also, like Academic put it, or who said non sequitur? That's exactly what, Vaden, you said that. It's exactly what it felt like. That's what it felt like. It was just kind of like a bit random. Susie says, I give this book a 6.5. Is that out of 10? It was depressing. Vonnegut feels newly relevant, though, says Integral Compass. Look, there was... Lisa, are you in the chat? Lisa, are you here? Lisa, can you tell me your score in Marvel Rivals, please? I'm invested in that. This is what happens when you create a game on tier and we all share each other's Steam accounts and we're all friends on Steam. When you go on, little notification pops up, which is lovely. Darren, you gave it a 3.5. Do you want to tell me your thoughts about Vonnegut? Have you read it before?
I have not read Vonnegut before. This one took a little bit to get going, for sure. But but it definitely, with the short chapters, I felt like I was making a lot of progress, but then I actually wasn't making a lot of progress because I didn't read a lot of pages. I'm like, all right, I'm out in chapter 32 and I'm 12 pages into the book. Honestly, I think I like this after a couple beers deep. I feel like
Okay.
I like that a little bit better. And I definitely feel like I liked the end better, and I think I'm a little bit with Vaden. There was definitely some parts that I thought were kind of funny. Some kind of dumb, but kind of funny.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually thought I had a stronger start. I thought I was like kind of getting in the groove of it. He was an investigative journalist from what it felt like for me, and he was writing an article and he was interviewing the children of a man whose role was to create and it was a scientist with the atomic bomb. That kind of the premise, the setup, I kind of got. And then it's like he goes to a bar and he talks to a whore. But then she ends up being really fascinating. Like that, there was like some sharpness and dialogues and like parts of that story where I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. It's sort of deconstructing what you think this guy is. They both kind of confess to each other that they're not really attracted to each other, but then they can't shut up and have really great conversation. So I'm like, okay. And then the pissant conversation breakdown happened, and I thought that that was really funny. Like it was a really interesting thing because the pissant kept getting brought up, and this almost antagonistic approach of like just hating people and hating things, like, you know, that's relatable. I kind of get that at the moment. And then it kind of lost me, and it lost me from about a third of the way in to 2/3 of the way in, where I didn't really kind of get what was happening in the middle. And then by the time he, our narrator of the book, is becoming the president of the San Lorenzo Island, and then there was a mass cultish suicide ending, I was just like, what? And then when he was like, I just want to have sex with my wife. By the way, you're 18. Don't ever talk to any man ever again. And I was just like, oh God. And I kind of was just like, okay, I think I'm done. So I didn't like the ending. I didn't really quite get it. When you look at disaster and end of the world movies, it is filled with a lot of the force majeure, like who you really become under pressure, teaming together. It actually goes more into heroism and community, and to see the antithesis of that happen here where no one really cared. Having the false religion intertwined, I felt was quite confusing as well, with Bokenism. Also, Bokenism sounds like it's a monster from the Legend of Zelda universe. That kind of distracted me a little bit too. I don't know. I'll admit I got quite lost. So I'd like to kind of throw it out to everyone else. Occult Stool said, oh, and Alicia's in here as well, saying I'm joining in late. Occult Stool said, I thought Ice Nine was a rapper. Academic says, honestly, I did not care about the end. Academic, how would you have liked it to have ended?
I thought there was a really interesting discussion between the reporter and Asa Breed, the scientist that was like the proctor for the main scientist, the one who is the father of the atom bomb, where like he explains what Ice Nine is, and then the reporter's like, "So what is this Ice Nine? What's all about this Ice Nine?" Like, and the scientist is like, you don't understand. Ice Nine does not matter. It doesn't exist. And I thought there was going to be some really interesting commentary about like, oh, the Ice Nine isn't necessarily a real thing but like something that will actually that the kids carry with them. He developed it without actually making a material thing, and that his kids now have this Ice Nine and it's freezing their interactions with the world. And they didn't do that. They just made Ice Nine a real thing that like kills the world. And I'm like, oh, that was, yeah, okay.
Which actually made that dialogue with the scientist, I think, more frustrating, because it's just like, which is it, my dude? Like, is it real? Is it not real? If you know, it's almost like, tell me how to respond in this situation, which is the point of Vonnegut. He's kind of like, no, I'm going to make the opposite of what should happen. I'm going to provide satire and make you realize that the people who are in power don't care, and no one really joins community or seeks hope or, you know, has strong family values. It's like he just wants to sort of fray and debunk a lot of those particular things. And that was uncomfortable. And I think it's supposed to be uncomfortable for you, but I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. It didn't feel clever. It felt confusing to me. More comments. Occult saying, it reminds me of Richard Dreyfuss, The Moon Over Parador. Sprinkle says, it sounds like a child's game, hence the title. Occult gave it a 2.5 out of 5. Jay Buntrock, you gave it a 3 out of 5. Talk me through your 3.
Yeah, I just felt that when it was really starting to get interesting on the San Lorenzo Island, I just thought the climax was way out of left field. It wasn't really set up. Just when it finally gets going, you're like, oh, it's going to end, and all of a sudden. And then I thought the Ice Nine was kind of uneven. If it had the power to freeze oceans and tornadoes, why did it could only kill the humans in such a real specific way, where they had to touch their hands and then touch their mouth? Like, wouldn't it just freeze them completely if any of them touched it?
Yeah.
So why did it have to go directly to the mouth? So I just thought when it was getting interesting, it just that ending is just way out in left field. But I guess maybe that's his point of why he's doing that.
Yeah, that's the thing. We were almost like making excuses because it's Vonnegut being like, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the point he's making. I think that's why I feel weird. I wonder if that's the angle he was going for. We just didn't enjoy it. They're just not really into it. Integral Compass says Vonnegut is always a descent into, then towards the end. And you see how close the madness is to reality. No, you don't, because by that stage, I stopped caring. I didn't see shit. I just saw the end and I was happy. Bacononism. I was missing a syllable. Bacononism. Sprinkles called it a fake religion based on a weak ideology. Yeah, that's kind of the point, isn't it? It was just like, let's lie. I still didn't really understand that. Alicia says 2 out of 5. It was gratuitously offensive, but I get the satire. That's how I feel. So, Alicia, you missed the conversation, so I'm going to go back over it, with you, because I feel like we're on the same page with this. Yes, it was written in 1963, but also I don't have to enjoy the antiquated language and how they would describe women, how they would describe or use other words with ethnicities or little people, all these sorts of things. It's like I'm not going to begrudge it because it was written in 1963 and it was in line with the standards then. But as a woman reading a book, I'm never going to enjoy a grown-ass man fetishizing a barely adult woman. Barely adult. Freshly 18. Clever Girl says, the point was to show how much of religion is based on lies. Colleen, are you there? Let's have a chat about that, the religious aspect. Let's talk about Bokononism.
Yeah, I think it was set up. Sorry, my camera doesn't seem to be working, but I'm here.
The letter
You can
C.
Yeah. So I think what Vonnegut was saying was that the religion doesn't matter because it's all just manipulation anyway. So he can make up anything. And then to make it work, you had to have this black and white division between the good guy and the bad guy. So it was, just making anything up and having it completely absurd. He spent a lot of time talking about the pointlessness of everything.
All right, let's talk about the role of religion then.
I have a comment.
Let's go.
Hey, so when I read this book, I read it in one day. But I have to tell you what I was happening during this day to make my reaction make sense.
Okay.
So I work at a private institution, and they had a guest speaker come that I got to wave my hands around for. His name is Dr. Francis Collins. He is one of the first people to decode the human genome. Very sciencey, very well known in the science community. So I had just come from a meeting with him, super sciencey, and then reading this book and how his faith and science meshed, and then reading this book, I laughed because I'm like, this is obviously a fake religion. And how easily he was like, oh, to marry you, I just have to join this religion. Fine. No qualms. And so I just was very jarred of like, I had this super sciencey experience, and then reading this book about the end of the world using science, it was really weird. And it was not a normal take for me. And that's why I gave it a 2.5.
Hey, I gave it a 2.52. I love that you literally had a correlating experience, like having someone of science respect science, talk about science, and like have a brilliant mind, and then see that almost be rebuked. What is a good word for this? Destabilized, like built-in satire. Have someone who's just like so nonchalant about the science, and have someone just really not care about what they're building, the disrespect of science a lot of the time. One of the topics that I have here, we'll move into religion after this one, but let's talk about the science aspect, Katie, because it's real fresh in your mind as well. And that is science without responsibility. So Ice Nine is created just because it can be, not because it should be. And we've seen that with as a theme in Jurassic Park. We see that sometimes with like prey. It's we are evolving science at such a rate. Should we make microorganism? What was the science in prey? Should we make nanotechnology?
The
Should we do
nanobots in
all of
Prey?
these things? The nanobots, and it's the Jurassic Park's such a good one. This is Michael Crichton is responsible for both of these concepts, but it's the whole look. Just because you could doesn't mean that you should. So, is knowledge itself neutral, or are scientists morally responsible for the outcomes? Where is Mr. DNA? Dino DNA. It's my favorite. It's my favorite part. That's my question for everyone.
I
I
have,
did.
have some comments.
Oh yes, let's go, Colleen, and then Katie will go to you.
I think he was talking about, they made a big point of talking about research for research sake, just to come up with stuff because you can. And then how the military will take anything and convert it into a weapon. I mean, this was really a big thing in the 60s when we saw so much of the military industrial complex uh, trying to run the world. So I read this book, I think, at least partly in the context of growing up in that environment and studying existentialism at that time.
I've just realized there is absolutely no reference of what book we're talking about. So let me get into that.
No cat, no cradle.
All Cradle. All right, let me try and update Twitch. There you go. Twitch is better. Colleen, I'd love you to expand on that a little bit more if you would like to.
Well, I think sometimes scientists, especially like around that time, it wasn't that long after the nuclear bomb. And so there was this big nuclear scare that we kind of grew up knowing that, I mean, like the Bay of Pigs and stuff, that this could happen any time. It was kind of hanging over us. And so I think it was not unusual to take kind of a live for today absurdist attitude about life at that time. So, when he's talking about science, um, we're talking a lot about some of the different uh, referencing some of the things that were used at that time, Agent Orange, nuclear bombs, incendiary devices, napalm. Um, so this was all kind of around that time.
It feels like when science goes through massive explorations like atomic bombs, we want a sense of very strong ethics and morals around this technology, right? And I feel like that's not what we're getting in this book remotely. The guy who's working as a scientist on the atomic bomb is very nonplussed, which is the opposite of Katie's experience with talking to the guy who's deconstructed the genome, who's very enthusiastic about it. I feel like knowledge is neutral, but the scientists are morally responsible for the outcomes. Yes, I do believe that. Katie, you had input on science without responsibility. And then Terry, was that you who also wanted to chime in?
Okay, so I thought this book didn't have a lot of science. I didn't notice a lot of science. I noticed more psychology and how people were perceived, and I thought that was very interesting. But I think scientists should have some moral responsibility for what they do. That's my opinion.
I feel like that's always a theme of any sort of sci-fi movie or any war movie or anything where it's like the world needs to come together. Who is in power? Who is in charge? Who's got the kill switch? Like, is the most responsible person in charge of making these huge life-altering decisions? Academic, your hand's up, and catch your little wiggling some fingers at me too. Oh, you got to unmute.
I agree with you to a large extent, Katie. I do wonder at what level and which scientist is responsible for bad results. So like if you think of science, like there's these levels of there's these foundational principles that other scientists build upon when it comes to seeing things actually be produced in the world. By and large, I feel like a lot of computing things are good. Social media probably not as good as like some of the benefits of other computing things. AI probably could be good, could be bad, depending on how things turn out.
Needs ethics behind it, though.
It does. It does. And so the question is, which of the scientists are we blaming culpable? Or is it forgive me, Enigma guy? Is it him or Grace Hopper? Like the people who are the foundational scientists that actually make computing possible, or is it the people that are actually implementing social media sites and like conceiving with this? Like because something that could be good earlier. It allows us to have great advancement in medicine and all these different things. Could be bad in other areas. So, like, I think you would put more culpability on the social media developer or the person who made gambling a lot more accessible around the world, right? So,
and that's all backed by greed, right? I mean, there's finally rules and restrictions around social media use. Australia is the first country that will ban anyone under the age of 16 to be on social media. There is so much data out there, and if you haven't read the book, Anxious Generation, I cannot recommend it enough. It is saying the detrimental negative effects of an entire generation having a smartphone, having the accessibility of not only the internet, but also having buzzing notifications and being available. I was talking today with actors who are just like, oh yeah, I've got ADHD, and it's like how common ADHD and autism has become. And knowing that smartphones have actually impacted and ramped up ADHD because it's an attention deficit thing. And we are being conditioned to have our attention available and then dismissed so fast. So that is having a huge impact on us mentally, every single person. And there was very little study not even, I think the study was there. There was just very little applying measures to protect vulnerable people or to protect majority of people with that. It was, and that's what I feel like we're having with AI. A huge tech boom has happened. We do not have enough time or resources or energy, or it's not a priority to figure out sort of conditions around it, rules and regulations, legislation. And what's going to happen is corporate and capitalist movements are going to run with it to try and make as much money as possible. Damn the consequences. And the consequences at the end of the day are us, our mental health. What's fascinating is that this is off the back of Hiroshima. So this is off the back of atomic warfare. And that's obviously the biggest movement in science at that stage. And if you watched Oppenheimer, you saw the difference between sort of being a consequence of it being dropped and being in the protected scientist's room and just wondering if something could be made. And that was like a really interesting sort of breakdown of it all as well. So science without responsibility just keeps us absolutely fucked as a society, really. Tim, your hand was up.
Yeah, I kind of want to advocate a little bit for the scientists. I didn't read this book, so I don't know anything, but just in general, the scientists like Oppenheimer and the people that worked on the Manhattan Project, they never made the decision to drop the bomb, right?
No, it's
That
out
wasn't
of their
in their
hands.
hands. In fact, Oppenheimer very loudly said, "Don't drop this bomb."
But then why
And
make the bomb?
because of that, was accused of being a communist and blacklisted, basically. So, saying it's science without consequence is one thing, but I think the scientists often do bear the responsibility of their inventions. What the problem becomes when people who aren't scientists get access to the science
And literally weaponize it.
Right. That's where
Literally.
you run into issues. It's not the scientists that are they're not having responsibility for their things. It's somebody else misusing what they're doing. Because the work that Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project did, beyond obviously the atomic bomb and the nuclear arms race, but they also paved the way for MRIs and X-ray machines and all of these massive medical breakthroughs and many, many other technologies that made life way better than it was in 1940. So, on the one hand, you can say, yeah, sure, science is so concerned with can they do something, not if they should do something, but often the if is not in the scientist's hands.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Academic.
I agree that if's not always in the scientist's hands, but I think there's a discussion here in the chat where the question is then if you know that what you are going to produce might be used for ill, even though there are good applications, at what point do you say, I'm not going to produce this research or this science and expose it for the world to know that it exists?
I feel like there is a copy paste of that. It doesn't have to be a scientist. It can be absolutely anyone who's working in a team formation on something. Let's use a really stretched example that's not applicable in this nature, but it's like for me being a TV host. If I'm like, hi, I have integrity. This is my rate. This is what I bring to the table. This is why I charge this much. And they can be like, we don't like it. And if you won't do it, we'll just get someone else who will. We'll destroy and remove and stop the people that won't work with us because someone else will step up and they will do it instead. So that's always a really difficult thing as well. And I wish
there's
you
actually
could.
a lot of truth to that. Because if Oppenheimer hadn't agreed to do it, they would have got somebody else.
Yeah.
Or they would have
Or the
lost
Germans
the
would have gotten
nuclear
to it
arms
first.
race to Germany and Russia.
And the conversation kind of goes, well, what's the lesser evil, not the greater good, And we've had this discussion a lot of the time in science fiction. I've been neglecting the chat a little bit, so I'm just going to go through some of the comments here. T.I. James is in here saying, Ice 9, let's talk about the game 999. I'm not sure what that is. I don't think you've read the book, though. Alicia says it felt strangely prescient, the end of the world being in the hands of buffoons. Colleen saying the point was to show how much of religion's based on lies. And Robin saying exactly, the false religion was actually my favorite bit. Alicia said, I listened to the audiobook and my favorite part was the interview at the end. Academic was like, wait, which religion in this book was the false religion? I actually felt like Baconanism was the real religion, and we'll definitely get into that. Bernadette says, there were some very powerful metaphors and symbolism that are very relevant to what's going on today. I love the end when he said that he was sleeping on a pillow made up of the stupidity of human history. Yeah, but how do you sleep well knowing that that's what you're sleeping on? Colleen said he had some rather salient points about the war. Integral Compass says, I think starting the book about the atomic bomb and then having a whole community die for the greater good was a good way to ask how much we care about what happened in Japan. There it is. Terry said, the ending felt like the ending of Burn after reading for me. It's just all for nothing. Integral Compass reminds us that Vonnegut's not really meant to be enjoyable. It's not meant to be enjoyable. Colleen says, I think growing up in the 60s and studying existentialism made it more accessible to me. Occult says, Baconanism seemed absurdist. The book seems nihilistic. Oh, yeah, a lot of archaic stereotypes. Baconanism. My God. I just still see a hobgoblin every time it's mentioned. Bernadette also says, advancement for advancement without considering the consequences or respecting human life. Yeah, that's kind of what this is all about. Academic says, to be fair, the main character is not a scientist. The book felt like it was trying to be a bit of a commentary on the layperson's understanding of science. Yeah, and he felt like a bit of a nothing as well. He wasn't seeking answers or truth, or he was just kind of, it started becoming really self-serving by the end. He was given a bit of a power and opportunity, and he sort of just went with it and then tried to bonk a minor. Bookmarked by Geordie. Lovely to see you in here. Sorry I was late coming in. What book is being discussed? And it was a first-time chatter, and you prompted me to actually write what we're talking about. Bernadette said that the creator of Ice 9, I forget his name, seemed like a complete sociopath. That is one of my topics of conversation. So let's put a pin, but we will talk about Dr. Felix Honecker, one of literature's most dangerous, harmless men. Is he evil or just empty? Alicia said that was also the question in Oppenheimer. The main theme is frivolous care of dangerous items by folks with power.
I think he's for the doctor, like, he's not evil, but he said he's kind of empty. But what I would say is that he's more like a tool. Like he's a tool for people who have see use in him, and even though he's doing what he loves to do, people are taking advantage of that. They're like, oh, here, we'll give you the resources to give you whatever you want, just make our stuff. And it's hard. He's hard to direct because he likes doing his own thing, but in the end, they're going to use what he's made for them for, probably evil purposes.
They also made him feel like a terrible father. He had no time or love for any of his children, really. There you go. Colleen says he seems really out of touch with reality. Sprinkle says certainly vibes of grumpy person. And it also sounded like he was just hyper-fixating, and that would be his entire personality. So he wasn't really communicating with anyone else. Sounds like they just cranked him up and set him on the path of whatever it was that he wanted to focus on and tackle. But it definitely didn't seem like he had any room to be a good father or to... And that was, like, again, a glimpse of the 60s, right? Of your nuclear family, where the mother stays at home and looks after and tends the children, where the dad goes to work and never actually plays the role of a dad. I do want to mention the studies showed that millennials are something like spending upwards of like 65% more time with their kids than the previous generations. Baby boomer fathers were very hands-off, and millennial dads are stepping up in a massive way. And I really like that. I mean, we all know I have a tattoo here that says PB, and it stands for Papa Bear, because my dad was the man. He was so good. He made me the nerd that I am today. So seeing Dr. Felix in that sort of way, was gross. The description of his character is a genius scientist with an uninhibited childlike curiosity for science and was married to Emily. He does not let preconceptions of what is possible or emotions affect his thoughts, and goes on to create Ice Nine, a substance that can freeze water and end the world. And before dying, he just gives 3 samples of it to his children. That's on scientific responsibility and fatherhood. What, they had it in like a thermos, right? What the fuck?
That's part of the not only did they get it in such a responsible way, but all the kids don't really respect it that much, and they basically give it away or have. I mean, they use it for something to help for them purposes, but it's still ridiculous that they just give it away.
Wait.
He didn't give it to them.
Yes, what happened?
Oh, sorry, he died. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right,
he died, and then the kids
they
divvied
took
it
it.
up. Yeah.
They
You're
took
actually
it.
right.
My bad. They took it, yeah. Bernadette said he read to me as a genius who also had a psychological or personality disorder, sociopath, or something else that causes you to lack empathy. Yeah, I kind of got a distinct lack of empathy and consequence. But also that fixation on science kind of felt sort of like what they would have considered Asperger's sort of back then. But I do believe that sort of our biggest breakthroughs are going to be from people. Darian, 2 out of 5. Are going to be from the autistic members of the community because they are brilliant. They're a genius. It's a genius thing. Like, yeah, their brains work in a way that is so impressive. So that's where a lot of the breakthroughs I feel are going to come from in our community. Bernadette said, I read Ice Nine as them basically trying to master death and play God. Correct. And then Vaden's talking about Felix. What about responding to Katie, like the scientist in this book, Felix Honecker, who has no intent but to create without thought for the consequence? So the question with that is he truly evil or is he empty? And Colleen reminds everyone that in the 60s, we didn't really have a good understanding of autism. Thank you, James.
But yeah, I think we talked about that a bunch in a lot of in chat. But yeah, people, like, it basically was like, yeah, he seems just empty. Like I said, he'll do what he wants to do. And it depends a lot on whether, like, intent. I think that was kind of the consensus, closest we get to consensus. Like, if you're creating for evil purposes, or you know it's going to be used for evil, then it's a problem. If you're just
But he
creating
didn't even care. He didn't even care.
He did not.
How
That's
it was
true.
going to be used. And I think that was a big takeaway from Vonnegut, which was just like lacking of any sort of empathy or understanding of the thing that you're creating kind of makes you a monster because you don't even know that you are a monster. The lack of awareness is so dangerous.
Yeah, it all depends on whether you define evil by intent or not. Because if, like, a monster, let's say a monster goes around killing people, like, but it's an actual monster, is that evil because that's its nature to kill or to feed or whatever, or is it bad only when it starts doing it, like killing on purpose for evil intent? Yeah. So that's a whole, it's a whole other question. Right.
Academic?
There's an interesting conversation in the Ender's Game series between Raman and Varelse, which is like things that entities or people groups that you can potentially get along with. The only issue is like an issue of conversation, like the big bad in the original Ender's Game, where the Formics, they were ramen. They could actually have a discussion. Whereas Varelse, whereas this species that there's no potential to communicate, and all they do is consume. Like there's that's another thing. And so I feel like we can quibble about like evil or not evil. What is the outcome of an action, right? And when you are able to determine like there is nothing that can stop that bad outcome. Like it doesn't really matter if they had good or bad intentions. Like the bad outcomes still happen, and
Yeah.
that evil thing happened to the people group, right? So.
But they were a huge part of that, intent or no. They're a huge part of it. And I think this goes back to our conversation about, ethics in science. Like, if you're going to build it, you need to be aware of it. You need to be cognizant of the impact of it. We're taking a little bit of a left turn here. Bookmark by Geordie says, Anxious Generation. Yes, I've heard the author speak live as well. Probably one of the most important books of our generation. I'm so far back in the comments. Alicia said, did anyone else get really sad when the princess died? A brown girl who was sexually empowered, who wouldn't agree to the main guy's restrictions. I'm happy she got to decide for herself when her time was up. But for her to see the genocide of her people, at that point, the humor was gone. The person we are talking about is Mona. She's a very young, beautiful adopted daughter. Again, that feels funky as well, of Papa Manzano. She's the master of the xylophone and has a strong interest in sharing love through the Boko Maru, which is connecting of the souls, the feet. I did think that there was a beautiful moment with sort of like westernized culture and non-westernized culture, which is, especially in the 60s, this is your nuclear family. This is the man has all the power. The man decides everything. And our narrator got very fixated on her, extremely fixated on her, was in a position where she was originally married to Frank, but they didn't really connect at all. Frank's got his own thing. And so urged to marry Jonah, our narrator. And then as soon as she decides to accept the marriage because she does love him, he recognizes and realizes she loves everyone. That's how she is. That's her culture. She loves and wants to connect with everyone. And he was like, no, you are mine. And this possessiveness came into play. It was like, no, by my culture, we are married. You are my wife. I get to decide what you are able to do, and I will restrict you from doing this forever. And then she was just like, cool, then I'm not going to do any of it. So she did have a lot of agency in that. The question, though, with Mona is she more of a concept than a character? And I feel like it's a yes. She's a 100%. Concept. Yeah. The character was almost like a vessel, but she was the lesson. She's the concept. It was the interactions with Jonah and seeing all that. Yeah. I will say
the character is just an afterthought. She's just there to project his desire and all that stuff.
Yup. Snores jumped back in the chat. The point is that pure science divorced from ethics or any humanism is as dangerous as evil intent. They are equivalent. That's what I think I'm trying to say. Yay, we're on the same page, Jeff. Fantastic. Berkey kind of argues that point, saying, are any of them actually characters? Who is the most real out of all of them? Who is the most real? And why is it Newt? Newt, the 4-foot freak, as they're called, he's the most human character because he represents emotional intelligence ignored by science.
Sorry, I don't think any of the characters are supposed to be fully developed because that's part of the satire. They're icons or representations of different aspects of the time or of people. So none of them were completely developed because of stereotypes, for one thing.
Yep. Or like extremism, the fact that Angela's like very, very tall and insular and basically self-soothes with the clarinet, and then Newt, who's 4 feet tall, very, very short, but more emotionally intelligent. You're right. It's satire. They're all like hyper extensions of something. But we've very much established in this book club, I'm a character first kind of reader. I want to connect to a character. I want to understand the ins and outs. And when I do not have fully developed satirical characters that are more concepts over a character, the disconnect that I'm going to have is always going to be pretty extreme. Colleen also says it was ironic that the two superpowers, the US and the USSR, both had samples. and therefore the ability to use Ice Nine to end the world, but it was some minor underdeveloped nation that was one that accidentally ended it. Oops. Academic, you have your hand up. And then Darian, I think you wanted to join in too.
I was just gonna I want to shadow what Colleen was saying that's 1000%. They're caricatures, I think is what Vaden said, more than characters. It sort of reads similarly to like Voltaire's Candide or Pilgrim's Progress or I prefer Pilgrim's Regress, even though that's like a lot more Christian and its like message. But like these characters are supposed to be a representation of like a thing that you can easily recognize, identify, and can sort of see how they would sort of react. That idea react. So yeah, they're not real characters, and I think that's the intent.
Yes, it is going to impact storytelling for me personally. Darian, you got thoughts?
Yeah, a few. Just to build off of what academics said, yes, especially as you referenced Pilgrim's Progress, because what's going through my mind is this isn't really a book. This is heavy-handed moralizing. There's no characters. There's barely any story. It's just him moralizing on this, which I'm not really a fan of. I mean, if the structure of the book is fine, it's just what's inside of it is lacking to me. Like there's a skeleton here that needs meat on the bones. As a Caribbean Islander, I really did not like the description of San Lorenzo. Um, as my country invented calypso, I did not like the calypsos that were referenced in this book. They sounded terrible.
The natives of Tasmania also got a chapter at the end there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why you got to bring in Australia and Tasmania?
Yeah.
But they essentially said that the white colonizers of Tasmania were hunting the indigenous for sport, and it was so demoralizing to even exist that they stopped procreating. My R was a
Yeah.
bit procreating. And you're just like, oh, cool. You're just talking about all this satire, and then you just got to drop this sad nugget of Australian history. Just like, for what? Like a gut punch? Yeah, no, it was really shit. But how do we explore that on a bigger scale instead of it being like a side jab? So yeah, no, I hear you. But then he's also, no one's really safe. There's several chapters which is like, oh, because everyone loves America so much. You know, they're absolutely ripping America a new asshole.
Yeah,
Loved those chapters.
Yeah, it's definitely satirical in the sense of like maybe it's through the lens of American exceptionalism, which and American imperialism, but at the same time it's just so heavy-handed. It was hard to really just enjoy what
Yeah.
I'm reading. It's like the structure of it is fine, but the style of the writing is not. And the thing is, if you actually have characters in there, that might have made a difference. Maybe the borderline insulting representation of the Caribbean is because it's viewed through the lens of American imperialism. Who knows?
in the mid 60s,
but
yeah.
it just just really I couldn't connect with it at all.
And you know what? And I love having that opinion in here because the majority of people in this conversation are American, and kind of seeing your culture represented, but in a way that actually wasn't nice. Like that's a really important distinction to make in here.
is from Tobago. That is part of my country. So that was I thought I was going to connect with it a little more, and I was just like, he just chose a random island.
Right.
You could tell, yeah.
I'm going back through a lot of the comments here. Satire is a way to look at the worst of the world through an absurdist lens, says Colleen. I remember studying absurdism in English, and I never really got it. I was like, why dance around it? Just say it. Academic said that Kurt Vonnegut got away with commie sympathizer statements in 1963. Toaster Poster said, I had to put this book through a Simpsons filter to enjoy it. Colleen said it. Oh, I read that one out earlier. Main character always refers to her as my Mona, says Jay Buntrock. Yeah, that possessiveness that got in there. Ooh. Academic said, I wish I could have cared about Mona's death, but I'd given out all of my cares to give by that point in the book. I felt the same way. I just was not, like, when that happened at the end, I was like, okay, sure, why not? All right, let's talk about going through other comments. Gosh, you guys are talking lots. It's great. There you go. This is creating conversation, which I do love. The scientists were hoping that the bomb could just be a deterrent, says Colleen. That's right. This is when Alicia was saying, yeah, it's like saying, build a gun, but don't shoot it. Alicia also said, in medicine, we never give meds without clinical trials, but we don't apply those rules to other parts of science. That's really interesting, because where medicine directly impacts a singular person, science impacts every person. So yeah, there really should be clinical trials of like science advancements. And Brush Kid's saying, yeah, my kids want a smartwatch so they can call and text their friends. They're not even 10, and I'm totally on the bandwagon of not letting them have one for a long time. I remember a tradition in the Garrett household was at 9 years of age, you are given 2 presents, like every single time, like it's the ritual of turning 9. You get a watch, analog watch, to tell the time and to learn to read the time. And you get a can of Coke, because up until that point, we never had any of that. It wasn't, you can't have Coke until you're 9. There's caffeine in the product, and there's so much sugar that your teeth rot. So my mum did not want any of us having any Coca-Cola before 9. And I remember I waited, and on my 9th birthday, I put my watch on, and I was like, yeah, and I've worn a watch ever since. And I cracked my can of Coke, and I drank it, and I was like, that's disgusting. And I've like never really had soft drinks since, but I do not drink Coca-Cola. It's like I'm such an anti-soft drink person now, and that's why I have 0 cavities, is a strong thing. Jeff says, I think that there are 3 points in the book. First is the previously stated point about pure science. Second, there is the contrast between science, truth, and Baconism, lies, which is better for humanity. The third is the idea of destiny and the idiocy and meaningless of that concept. All right, so let's talk about the second portion of this, which is science, which is truth, and Baconism, which is lies. So I say that that's kind of defined as the search for meaning, even fake meaning. So Baconism openly admits that it's based on lies, yet it brings people peace. A comforting lies better than destructive truths. And I feel like all of us will have our own kind of thought with this. I really don't believe in lies. And I would rather a harsh truth over a soft lie any day. I feel like more and more, especially in the millennial generation, whether it's a softening of parenting, I'm not sure, but we have been given a big chance to opt out. You do not have to tell that person why you don't want to date them anymore. You don't have to explain why you're firing them. In fact, you don't have to have the conversation at all. You can just ignore it. You can ignore conflict. You can walk away from situations, and you don't have to face things. And I kind of understand that we're all kind of given the soft lie as a hug, an emotional hug from these tough situations. I just think we all need a better relationship with conflict and stop seeing conflict as a horrible thing to endure, and instead see conflict as a way to reach a solution. So I'm putting the question out to everyone else. What would you rather? A comforting lies better than destructive truths? Not only just a yes or no, but situationally. What situations suit the other better? Vaden.
Oh, yeah. Overall, yeah, definitely prefer the harsher truth. It's because like a lot of people like the lie I'd say initially, it might not be fine. It might not hurt anyone to say, the in quotes white lie, but like in the end, I feel like you're kind of doing a service to people, like because it ends up creating this kind of culture, creating this like pattern where you're not really since you're not giving people the truth or you're not getting accepting the truth, like it creates problems later on that don't get resolved, and the problem with the lie is like the lie is essentially a problem you're avoiding.
It's a
That's-
buffer.
Yeah, so it gives you time. Maybe I'll give you time, but like realistically, unless you go back and somehow and correct it, you're gonna just leave people with those problems, and if it's not being fixed, then it just creates more problems in the future. So it just becomes this kind of a cascading thing where one lie leads to another lie, and then it becomes more. It just propagates in that way. So truth is important.
Nip
and
it in the bud.
people- Yeah, otherwise it gets out of control very quickly.
Robin, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so the volcanism is like referred to as like a harmless untruth, but then at the end there's obviously the directive that they all need to kill themselves.
And they do.
Yeah. So like there's like this seedy underness to this this lie that I do not like. So I would
No.
definitely go towards the straight truth.
Colleen says, I just read an article that kids who watch anime are more resilient than kids who grow up with fairy tales because it addresses so much dealing with conflict. I have always championed anime, especially as it's shoujin, which is like usually for like the young boy model, which is trying to be a hero. I've always said that the mentality for that is that you have to work hard. Fairy tales is that you're just born into it and fate takes over and it just happens for you. So if you're patient and if you wait, it'll just happen. But anime is like, if you want to be the best, you have to train to become the best. I really like I will actually recognize a different feeling in me after watching, whether it's a Dragon Ball Z or a My Hero Academia or something like that, where the young protagonist is really struggling emotionally, mentally, and especially physically. And they have to overcome these hurdles, but they have to work through it. They have to face it every single time. And it's always backed with kindness and helping. And anime, especially in Eastern cultures, really secure a community, whereas Western fairy tales is about the individual gain. Whereas in Japan, it's a community gain. And I love that. Darian. And then we'll go to you, Tim.
It's just to add to that. It's like the difference between a Miyazaki movie and a Disney movie. It's like, it's always within you to overcome. You just, your resilience, you work hard, it's in you. Disney movies and that type, it's always like external factors. Wait for this, wait for Prince Charming, wait for this.
Be
It's like-
rescued.
and Miyazaki is like, all those animes are like, you just need to persist, and they don't shy away from the difficult truths. And which is another thing, it ties back to this. It's like, life is hard, life isn't fair, and don't lie to yourself, don't lie to others. You need to just, the only way forward is through.
Yeah.
You-
And the
you
world's
can't-
not
you can't
fair,
just
and
run
it's
away.
gonna keep happening to you.
Yeah.
So you need to build resilience.
Yeah.
In Maude We Trust literally talks about the Pokemon theme song. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them was my real test, and to train them is my cause. Where it's like the very strong, clear goal there. The question that we've been talking about though is, would you rather a comfortable lie, comforting lies, or a more of a harsh truth? In Maude We Trust says, look, it depends on the situation. Truth most of the time, but hey, lie to me sometimes. Bernadette says, I think due to social media and texting, people don't know how to communicate directly anymore. They can avoid conflict and don't build resiliency. You're exactly right. If you don't want to respond to the text, you put your phone down, gone. At least in a conversation, it's harder to walk away from. So what's the trick? Don't have the conversation to begin with. I just think that there is a lot more isolation, removing, not having the conversation, not saying the thing. No attempt is being made. Snores was saying, on a more surface level, this book is about the futility of the arms race and the potential for human extinction that could result. And Darwin says, I agree, but it's actually more specifically tied to the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Darren, that was something that you brought up earlier. What do you know about the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962? Because I am not versed.
Not a whole lot, other than the fact that it was 1 second away from nuclear Armageddon,
Right.
and it was all.
I'm
I guess
glad
it was
that
all
didn't
about. It was
happen.
all about
Tim!
Russia wanting nukes in Cuba, and the U.S.
Yeah.
not being happy about that, and
Oh, sorry.
all the stuff that sort of went with there.
Yeah. I was going to add to what Darren was saying with that. The USSR wanted to put nukes in Cuba, because Cuba and Russia were allies at the time, and JFK was like, no. And the United States didn't like that, obviously, because Cuba's incredibly close to the United States as far as proximity goes for an intercontinental nuclear warhead. And so it became there was a lot of chest puffing and a lot of posturing, and it became very close to actual military action. I think that was the closest the doomsday clock ever got to midnight until recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Yikes. Huh. J. Bunt Rock's talking about Bokono Maru, where two people bare their souls to each other, and how he appreciates the pun with it. Darian, you said the reason Cuba aligned with the USSR was out of necessity because the US shunned them after the revolution. I actually got a little crash course on this recently. The somewhat hostility between America and Cuba, where Cuba was sort of flourishing with their government and providing strong education and teachings, and it was sort of like outpacing America, and so America was essentially shunned them in that way.
Yeah, but that's because Cuba was communist, and America can't deal with that very well.
I still, to this day, have never really understood what that whole thing was about. Communism
it was capitalism versus communism. They want to say
Right.
it was democracy versus communism, but it wasn't. It was capitalism.
That makes sense. I mean, we've had big conversations with our book club about capitalism versus, what was the book that we were talking about that? That was a real big conversation starter that we had. Socialism versus capitalism.
Was it Jade City? Maybe not. I don't know.
Huh. Jeff, I remember having that conversation with you. You gave us a really good crash course about what capitalism used to be and what capitalism is today, and how it's changing so much. Cuba has superior healthcare and higher literacy rates, says Darian. Colleen says the US backs horrible dictators just because they were anti-communist. Was it Poppy War? Oh, I don't know. Jeff says, I think the internet has created many granfalloons that lead to all sorts of problems too. Yes, you look at technological advancements and especially sort of internet on computers and then internet on phone, and the impact that that's had on society big time. But Colleen, I love that you brought in anime. That was so fun. Darwin says society would not function without comforting lies. Darwin, I would love to hear situations and the facets of society that can only function on comforting lies. I like that. KP Dub says the USSR put a bunch of nukes on Cuba. USA get them out now and set up a naval blockade. It was very tense standoff. Darwin says that Cuba is the model for San Lorenzo. Colleen says there's a good movie with John Goodman that's set in that time called Matinee. Jeff says absurdism isn't about dancing around things. It's about making the horror of real things digestible in a way that can be processed. Darwin says the Cuban Missile Crisis is basically the world powers around a Caribbean island close to a mutual destruction. And a granfalloon, says Jeff, is a false community. Prey. Was Prey capitalism versus socialism? That could be it, because it's about, there was nanotechnology which was supposed to help the medical industry, and it instead was, weaponized. It's all weaponized. All right. Absurdity in the face of doom. The end of the world happens rather casually and almost accidentally in this book. Vonnegut treats the apocalypse kind of like a punchline. Does this work? I feel like a general consensus we've gotten from this conversation thus far is that you kind of lost us by the end of the book, so it didn't quite pack a punch because we just didn't care. So, Jeff, I want to open that up to you, someone who really enjoyed the book and was there the entire time. Talk me through the end of this book. Do you think that humor makes the message sharper or easier to ignore? Darian says that Grenfalloon equals parasocial relationships online. Lol. If it were written better, the ending would have worked better, says Darian. Oh, Darwin circling back with the comforting lies. Comforting lies allows us to remain civil to some degree. Imagine if everyone every day only told the truth, regardless of social construct. Does truth always have to be harsh? Does truth always have to be blunt? Tim, you look like you're
I
about to
wanted
smack
to
someone.
chime in on the truth conversation because I think Darwin is correct to a degree. I don't think what you said. I don't think truth has to always be harsh. I think truth with the right delivery, even if it is a harsh truth, with the right delivery, can be comforting. Or as you were saying, with a generation that doesn't adapt to conflict, and I've always kind of viewed conflict as an opportunity to grow. Like that's the point. Um, so I mean, in certain circumstances, a lie isn't that big of a deal. You tell your kids Santa Claus exists. You believe in the Easter Bunny or the Tooth Fairy and things of these those are comforting lies, right? And they have zero real consequences in the world. And other times, as you grow up and become an adult, hopefully a well-adjusted one, the time for truth becomes greater. And so
When
sometimes
when you've got more life experience to be able to
yeah,
handle and contrast and
well,
compare.
the idea is as you grow, you become able to handle the truth better.
Unless
Also, it
Jack
depends. I think,
Nicholson's yelling at you.
yeah, and I think it depends on one, who's the person delivering the truth and who's delivering the lie. There are certain circumstances where I kind of wished that someone would have lied to me, or maybe they did lie to me and I wish I'd never found out about it. Because that's the other thing too, is if someone tells you a comforting lie and you never find out that it was a lie, what loss is it to you, right?
Also, someone else's lie is another person's truth. Darwin says, I agree to catch-22, but I would argue that we as a society are not great at receiving truths that don't align with our preconceived beliefs.
Very true.
So a preconceived belief, and I think that this is what we are understanding as a society, especially in the divided states of America right now, is how do you find commonality? How do you stop kind of like staying cemented in a belief system? And how can we be a little bit more flexible with things? And I think the really difficult part is it's become so black and white. I think what's crystal clear to one person is someone else's lie, and what we don't believe in is someone else's truth. So that's really interesting. But I think when you have a president that's trying to deconstruct truth on a daily basis, I think truth is more imperative than ever, personally. And I think that truth is going to become more destabilized soon.
It's going to become harder to discern is what's going to happen. It's going to become
With
very hard
AI?
to tell what the truth actually is.
So I actually think the truth is more important than it's ever been before. 100%, in my opinion, the best way to adopt beliefs is to allow some fluidity and never be 100% sure of everything. Darwin, yeah. And I feel like as soon as we all know that there's always more to learn, and the only way you can learn is to listen, right? But is the person who's talking while you're listening truthful? It is really quite difficult. We're in a bit of a pickle. KPW says you'll find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. Luke, about having a delusion about some old dead guy. That's a Star Wars reference. I like what Colleen said before as well, where it's like societally, when are comforting lies appropriate? And Colleen says, when someone asks you how you are, what do you say? Like, how truthful are you? I used to do this when I was a checkout chick at my local grocery store. It was so mundane with, hi, how are you? Good, you? And I would tell them. I'd be like, look, today's a rough one. I feel like every second lasts 3 seconds, it's a bit slow. And they go, that's nice. Every time. And it became funny for me. And I was like, how can I respond to this? Like,
here's
what can I get away with saying? Because they're not hearing me.
That is just
my
heroic,
go-to.
okay?
What's your go-to, Tim?
My go-to is anytime someone tells me to have a good day, I'll give it a shot.
I'll give it a go.
Like, I'll try. I'm not making any promises. And it always gets a laugh, but it is very genuine. Like, I don't control that to a point. I was like, I'm starting out trying to have a good day.
I could argue
happen.
that mind over matter, if you actually decide your day is going to be good, you will find ways to have a good day. I think you're not nihilistic.
I think that's true, but also, like, you never know when your day is going to get absolutely derailed.
That's out of your control, but deciding it's good, that's in your control.
I'm gonna give it a shot. Like,
My
I'm trying
dad
to have a
used to
good day. Don't know what's gonna happen after.
Do you though? Do you try to have a good day, Tim? Look me in the eyes, give me a comfortable lie or the harsh truth. When you say I'll try
to have a good day every
Okay.
day because I don't like sitting in negativity. It's not good for me, and it's not good for anybody around me either.
There it is. That's why I'll crack it. I'll be like, oi, your negative meter. We'll switch that dial. There is so much evidence supporting gratitude mindset. If you do write down 3 things you're grateful for every single day, it tricks your brain into looking for things that you are grateful for. And then that actually shifts your default into having more gratitude as an outlet and as a mindset. Vaden, you got the giggles. Oh, Sanderson. Got it. Sanderson, who's just made bank recently. Dude never has to write another word again, which is music to Tim's ears.
But he'll write forever because the guy loves it, and
he's mapped it all out, and he's a doer. He's an absolute doer.
Yeah.
Alicia says, "Oh yes, Colleen."
My dad always had a response for when people told him to have a good day. He'd just say, "You can't tell me what to do."
I think your dad and Tim would get along really well. You can't tell. Alicia says, if the ignorance is willful, then it may be ethically okay. For example, my parents told us that they didn't want to meet every person we dated. They only wanted to meet the person that we think we are going to marry. It was their choice, and they accepted that we would lie about our dating lives. It's interesting that you say willful ignorance. It's so fascinating because ignorance has come up so much, especially as an outsider living in a different country. And I will always argue, like, when people say ignorance isn't an excuse, and it's like willful ignorance. I think ignorance with intent, wanting to stay ignorant, is literally choosing to not learn. Choosing to not learn something is dangerous. I think that's a very dangerous mindset to have. So a willful ignorance is, I'm not going to stay educated. I'm not going to learn about things, and I'm going to be willfully ignorant. Now, in the example with your parents, they're doing it for their sanity. I get it. They don't need to know everything that's happening in those relationships. I just think that more and more I envy naivety because being naive and not yet learned is very peaceful. The problem with learning and the more data you're collecting, the more nihilism and cynicism can exist. And like the older we get, the more curmudgeonly we become a lot of the time. And that's because, and this is a big thing in dating with women who are older. And it's actually starting to come out with older men as well, where it's like we have so much evidence of bad experiences and bad moments and shitty behavior and scary things that have happened that we do become bitter. We become a lot more hostile, or we become a lot more over it, or we've had so many experiences, and out of those experiences, way more have been negative, that the lived experience is actually hurting us. And there's times where I remember being so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when I first moved to America, because I didn't know, I hadn't yet learned the pain that exists in this country. And once you do learn it, you can't unlearn it. So that's the thing as well. So it's like, do you want to be incredibly educated and know all the nuance and learn about culture and learn about the depth of things, knowing that the chances are a lot of those experiences aren't kind, and it can really ruin you as a person. Ooh, that's fun. Jeff says, I think the humorous anticlimactic end serves to illustrate Vonnegut's view of humanity's absurdity. It really nails down the non-existence of human destiny. The apocalypse is caused by stupidity and carelessness. The world is fragile, and we should use more care with everything. I just feel like, though, that there was a choice for everyone to take the Ice Nine. It was a choice that was demonstrated. And so that was a willful participation. I think the scary part about apocalypse and the end of the world is that we suffer someone else's decision. If given the chance, we don't want bombs to go off. We don't want to kill. We don't want to maim. We don't want to destroy. We don't want conflict in that degree. And yet we will all suffer the consequences from the decisions of a handful of people. That's not what Vonnegut has demonstrated in the book. He demonstrated a very willful participation to ending things, unless I'm reading that incorrectly. What we want is irrelevant, says Jeff. You're fucking right. It doesn't matter what you want. What do we want? What do we all as humanity? If like we could really get to the bottom of it all, what do we want? I think it's compassion. I think we all want to be a little bit more seen and heard and felt. I think we all want kindness given to us more than we give out, because we're conditioned to believe that we deserve kindness, but kindness also has to be earned, which is contradictory. What is it that we want? What do you want? Darwin says, I know this is a book club, but for a great satirical example of what's going on is a film called Network from 1976. It could have been made today and would still apply. I feel like the reason why a lot of themes are still relevant hundreds of years later is because we're still in it. It's a human
There's
nature.
an epic speech towards the end of that movie that like I continually post now to my socials because
Can
it
you post
applies.
it in the book club? I'd like to watch
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. I will find it. It's amazing.
Bernadette says, in 12-step programs, there is a step involving making amends. They give a guide on how to approach communicating to the people that you have wronged. For example, if you're telling someone the truth just to make yourself feel better or make yourself better and is not useful or relevant to the other person, they recommend just not sharing. Yeah, that's self-serving. What you're doing is looking for, undoing damage done to others. The problem with the 12-step program is that it's less about behavior and psychology, and it's more about religion a lot of the time with that. And I just wish we could separate it, because everyone has psychology. Darwin says grateful thought is also a tenet of ACT therapy. It works. We're talking about gratitude here, and Alicia says, hey, I did that too, but I did 8 things that I'm thankful for. I called it my 8-ful things. I love that. We're talking about critical thinking skills, and ignorance can't be a bliss nowadays. Colleen says, I try to write one thing I'm grateful for and one thing that makes me happy in my daily journal. Colleen, what are you grateful for today?
Today, I'm grateful for this community.
So
You
am
guys
I.
are always so supportive. I love the mental stimulation, but even more, I love the emotional support.
I do too. Sometimes I'll have a funky day and I'm like, guys, I don't think I want to talk about a book I didn't even really like. And then we always have like a really conducive, wonderful conversation that comes from it. Terry's talking about the end of the book, saying, I don't think it was a choice. They asked their religious leader what they think they should do, and he said, drink the Kool-Aid, so they did. It's like a uniformed decision. Phantom Aria says, I got the chance to see Network on Broadway with Bryan Cranston, and it was awesome. Hell yeah. Love that. Susie says, I have a choice. My choice is to never drink the Kool-Aid. I still feel like there's a choice there, but that's the satire, right? That's the fact that it was uniformly not questioned and just gone through. Baden says, I can't say what others want, but I want people to be considerate, to progress to a fairer world, and for everyone to be able to try for their dreams without going broke. God, that'd be nice. I honestly just think that if there was just a 10% increase in kindness, the world would be a vastly different place. Just 10% better, 10% more kindness. Jay Buntrock says, I'm grateful for my local library who had a copy of Children in Blood and Bone available for checkout. Ooh, ooh, ooh. That is our February book. Feb 5 will be our first time jumping into the first half of that book, so get started right now. The week after that, we'll be doing the whole book discussion. I'm still waiting to hear back from Tommy. I'd really like to get her on the show. And if you are at the library, try and get a copy of I, Medusa out, because that is our bonus book for this month as well. Cash says, I literally just want to be able to spoil my friend's son and maybe go on a vacation without worrying about paying rent. I mean, the rent prices at the moment are astronomical, and that is a capitalist movement that's happening. One capitalist giant billionaire company bought up a lot of
Maude, you missed the rest of that statement, but that's okay.
What's the rest of the statement?
I said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I'll never be able to take vacation.
That's so weird. In Riverside, it only did that one comment and it didn't do the other ones. I'm a deucer. PSA, January is a bad month for blood donation, but the need is high. So if you can, please donate. I remember I tried donating, and one of the things that I kept getting caught up on is did I have a tattoo within a last time frame? And if you have, then you can't donate blood. Not an excuse anymore for me. And I've got, if you know your blood type, some are rare and very needed. I have O pos, which is basically, or is it O neg is the universal blood. So no matter what, anyone can put O pos in their bloodstream. We really should be more caught up on this, huh?
O negative is universal donor.
O neg is universal. Got it. O pos is any positive. And O positive is the most common.
I've donated blood 5 times before I learned my blood type.
What is your blood type?
AB negative or AB
That's
positive?
so rare.
The universal acceptor, essentially. So I can receive blood from anybody.
AB positive is the universal recipient.
So that's me, yeah.
That's good. No, that makes sense, Jimmy. Tosaposa says, I'm B positive, and I find that ironic. Tosaposa, just be positive. Just be positive. All right. The last thing I want to talk about, I mean, we've kind of touched over this already, which is power control and irresponsibility. Ice 9 moves through the hands of people who don't understand it or respect it. Who is most at fault, though? Is it the creator of Ice 9, the keepers of Ice 9, or the society for having Ice 9? All of the above. But again, it's an education thing. So if the creator of Ice 9 never explains the futility of Ice 9, then it's just a thing to other people.
Yeah. Also, like when he tries to explain things to his kids a lot of times. Like he tries to explain science, and they don't care at all. Like they are not interested at all. It just goes right over their heads, and they have no interest. So.
And I relate to that. Yes. Darwin says, I'm new to the channel, but if you're reading Vonnegut, you should definitely read Slaughterhouse 5 if you haven't already. I think I would like to try that to see if so I can compare Vonnegut to Vonnegut, if it's my thing at all or if it's just this book. Alicia says the kids were like 95% to blame. I don't know. I didn't like the narrator. Jonah, fuck off. You're done. I don't like you. Human connection. The last theme of the book I would like to chat about: human connection versus isolation. So I did find some of the phrases of Bokononism interesting. The Karas, which is like your destined groups. That kind of makes sense in a way, right? What is your destiny telling you? Like you kind of form kinship in community in these groups. They just have a name for it, which is the Karas. Versus your Granfalloons, which is your false associations. So which groups in your life, do you believe are real Karasses and which ones are Granfalloons? Now, Darian, you called out a perfect Granfalloon earlier, which is a parasocial relationship on social media. That is incredibly a false association. Absolutely. That's a great one. Your Karas, your destined groups. Also, that woman who was like, oh, we're from the same people. You should call me mum. Call me. Do it now. Call me mum. Do it. I'm your mother. Call me mum. I was like, you're forcing an association. I don't like that. And I get that red flag when I meet people who kind of like ahead of time or ahead of being earned will label it like a bestie. Oh my God, hi bestie. I'm like, I can't remember your name. How are we besties? We have not gotten there. I get a massive red flag for that behavior. Why is that so funny, Ketch?
I was just thinking something very similar about people who want to have labels attached to them before you even really know them.
What do you think
And
it
it's
is?
just weird.
Is it extroversion or is it kind of a form of manipulation?
Oh, in some cases, to me, sometimes it kind of reeks of desperation.
Right.
Like they want so much to be a part, either to be a part of whatever it is you've got going on, and they desperately want to be a part of it, or they just don't have that connection with anybody, and they just desire it so much that they kind of impart it on people before it's earned or
insecurity as well.
Yeah. Maybe that's why my alarm bells go off. Jeff says, asking whose fault it is missing the point of the book. Or is it having a book club discussion, Jeff? Why don't you answer the question? Tell us. Whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? We don't need that quote, Nightbot. Jeff also says The Breakfast of Champions is the best Vonnegut, or his favorite. Hold on. Alicia was saying, this group is my Karas then. I mean, it is a connection. It is people who decide to meet, to discuss, essentially do the homework to form conversations around a common cause, to participate in it. Yeah. I would say so. Vaden says, I don't believe in having either. What do you mean either? Either what? Oh, Karas or already forgot the word.
I'm Granfalloon.
Yeah. Because while I love this community, it wasn't destined. How was it not destined?
Well, because what I would say is, like, it was a choice to first join in the first place, and then also.
But how did you stumble? How did you stumble upon it though?
Well, we put out a video a while ago about asking people who are interested in helping with Dungeons and Flagons, and since I love that, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to try to join, and it did happen to be a particularly good time for me because I was in what I call like my year of yes, where I was trying to be very proactive in doing things. In the past, I would be like kind of in a rut and just kind of saying no to everything unless I knew I would like it. And then that year, I was like, okay, if yeah, take a risk. Instead, I'd be the opposite. I'd be like, okay, unless I know I don't like this for sure, I will try it if I think it's interesting and all. So I thought it was interesting. I tried it and ended up like being amazing. But
I
like,
wonder
yeah,
what kind of destiny though is. Oh, destiny is bullshit. That's the point, says Jeff.
yeah, I would say at least I don't believe that's
I
but
like it. I like it a little bit where it's like, what is the chance that the time when you decided to open up and receive things, it was given to you and it's lasted as long as it has?
yeah, I mean it's true. But a lot of things are right place, right time, right? So it happens. Who knows what could happen if like if you grew up and you had different friends, or if you grew up and so many things that could change your life. So it's kind of a. I mean, yeah, it depends how much you believe in cosmic stuff, but like to me, it's like, oh, I got lucky, and this happened to work out really well, and I appreciate it a great deal because of but you know, I'd have to take initiative, and I'd have to be like, so I feel like it's the better. It may or may not be true, the destiny, but I feel like it's better for people to think of it as a responsibility rather than, you know, hope for a destiny to help them push them on that path. So
Sprinkle says, hooray for being open to whatever arises. I like that. Just being open to it. I think that's cool. I remember getting really frustrated. We were going back to the anime conversation of like, you've got to work hard. You've got to put in the effort. You've got to, you basically got to decide and take on your own destiny instead of like the westernized Disney of just wait for things to happen to you or to be rescued from your situation by someone else. I remember a friend of mine, this was a very long time ago. I was dating a guy and he was in a band and she wanted to date one of the guys in the band and she saw it as fate that we were friends. And I was like, well, do you want me to like introduce you, set you up? And she's like, no, I'll let fate handle it. And I'm like, the fuck? I'll just no, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And I was like, you can just like help make it happen though. You can just take steps and like reduce the risk of chance to like grasping and going for the thing that you want. No. And I remember being so angry and frustrated at that. Like the absolute detachment of outcome, because little did she know that Maude was the hand of fate. Dun, dun, dun. But it's like passing up opportunity because fate will handle it. And if it's meant to be, I'm like, good luck with that. Let's see how that pans out for you. Like, I just thought that was pretty wild. At the same time, good things happen to those who go out and fucking make it happen. There it is. Robin says destiny takes away all of our agency. Yeah, destination is the suspending of input. Like it's opting out on the hope that circumstance will do its thing. You're right. I am all for life is random and meaningless. Your choices and something will happen or not happen. Life is I don't know if it's meaningless, but I do believe life is random.
Jeff, are you okay?
Jeff, your life has meaning. I see you make it have meaning often. I'm great, he says. Make your choices. Yeah, but understand that you can choose, right? Instead of like an external force delivering things. Yeah, I think that's the big difference, right? That's the anime versus Disney. Are you going to go out and get the thing, or are you just going to wait for it to happen to you or at you? Jeff's great. Human connection versus isolation is what we were talking about. Which groups in modern life is your real karass and which ones are grand falloons? All right, we've had that conversation. Does Kratz Cradle? Maude. The dyslexia just comes out at inopportune moments. Does Cat's Cradle argue? This is for Jeff and Jeff alone. Grimdark. Gridmark. I've faced that one, J. Von Rock. I can do it now. I've defaulted the wrong way. Jeff, this one's for you. Are you ready? Does Cat's Cradle argue that humans are incapable of handling truth? Do, 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 do. No. So humans can handle the truth. All right. Need more? I always want expansion. Jeff, I noticed that that's your arguing point is just a definitive yes or no, and I always want the why. I always want the follow-up. No can be a full sentence. It can be, but in this conversation, I would like a click to see more. Bloop. Yo, Joe. Who's Joe?
Ken made a G.I. Joe joke. Knowing is half the battle. And then Jay
Thank you.
Bartrock said, Yo, Joe.
Vaden says, for a non-Jeff, I would say that humans can handle the truth, but lies are easier to use to manipulate them. Was that Zelda snoring? I mean, she's in her bed asleep, so it might have been. It might have been. Did Australians not get to watch the G.I. Joe cartoons? We had cops. That one. Cops. We had that one. In Australia, we actually like and respect our police force. That was a weird difference coming here where I was like, oh, they're not the good guys. Ooh. Darwin says, I think one of the themes of the book isn't if we can handle the truth, it's if we want to. Do we want to handle the truth? Or do we want to put a little ice nine to our lips and call it a day? Bernadette says, humans interpret the truth in ways that are more palatable. For example, the parade on San Lorenzo is to celebrate a bunch of young men dying. Yes, but in parade form. Yeah, it's like an ego defense. Also, the whole notion of the hook as well, the hooker. I was like, what? So wait, do you use it to string up people? Yes and no. Why? We like to threaten it. We've used it, but we don't use it. Which one is it?
They mentioned like they use it once or twice or something like that a year.
That's still too many.
Probably, yeah, but they have to keep the thread alive, right? So that's their excuse. That's
Religion requires fear for it to be successful.
Well, the best part about that is that it specifically is like they outlawed the religion to make it more forbidden and more interesting, but then they also added the hook to to make it that way. It's a funny dichotomy.
Well, yeah, that's one of the questions that I had here. Is Bokononism cruel, kind, or necessary? Jeff? Vonnegut kind of says that truth is not inherently good, noble, or liberating. Instead, he presents truth as a relentless indifferent force that is often hostile to human happiness. The novel suggests that humans need a buffer of fantasy to survive the stark reality of their existence. I sort of agree with that. I do live in somewhat of a fantasy to survive. I mean, what do we all do? We read to escape, no? And we're literally reading fantasy. So fantasy as a genre is our fantasy as a lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, but like we do know that the fantasy we read is a lie. It's a fiction that we like. So we're consenting to that fantasy. It's when you're not consenting to it that's the problem.
Yeah, okay. Does Vonnegut believe that humanity deserves to survive? Does Vonnegut believe humanity deserves to survive? Darwin says, some backstory on the book. Vonnegut worked at GE after WW2 and felt that scientists didn't care how their discoveries and findings could be used, just like Jurassic Park. Vonnegut and Crichton would have a great conversation, and I would like to have been a fly on the wall for those. Is this book hopeful in disguise or fundamentally nihilistic? Is this book hopeful in disguise or fundamentally nihilistic? Jeff, I'd love to pick your brain. He answers the other one. Does Vonnegut believe humanity deserves to survive? He said deserve. I don't think he had an opinion on that, so neither. So with this one, Is this book, hopeful in disguise or fundamentally nihilistic? Jimmy says definitely the second one. I kind of feel like it's the second one. I didn't derive any hope from this at all. Jeff says not hopeful. Jay Buntrock says not much hope in the book that I found. But Jeff also says it's not hopeful, nor is it nihilistic. Berkey says hopeful nihilism. All things end, hopefully. Hopefully, as it depends what spin you have on that. Some of the quotes that were from this, Jay Buntrock wrote in saying, science is magic that works. What did you love about that one, James Buntrock? Full name. I'll see you in my office for a conversation.
I think it's more the satire with the contrasting with the Bokanism, where it's just a lot of hooey-cooey, and then you just compare it to the science where it's based on facts, and then you can just kind of say that it's magic that works because there's actual evidence behind it.
The magic actually works. Darwin says the point of satire is to ask really good questions about its themes, and we've just successfully done that for nearly 2 hours. Vaden, you've got some quotes in here. Which one did you want to talk about? Are you in the doc? If you're not, I'll read some out.
Yeah, I'm in the doc.
Which of these quotes do you want to discuss?
Let's see, what was we good? I kind of like this one about the with the pigs. Like, so it's like, perhaps when we remember wars, we should take off our clothes and paint ourselves blue and go on all fours all day long and grunt like pigs. That would surely be more appropriate than a noble oratory and shows of flags and well-oiled guns. Sorry.
Yeah, right. It's like. Anyone unable to understand how useful religion can be founded on lies will not understand this book either. Got it. That makes the most sense to me. Colleen says that this book is a warning. Jeff said that it's a plea for humanity to change. The last question that I'm going to leave everyone with is, if this book was a plea for humanity to change back in 1963, 60 odd years later, have we seen any of the change? KPW says, I've been trying to come up with a satire pun relating to tires all night, but I feel like it would just be retreading old ones. I'm so deflated.
I mean, I guess we've succeeded in not blowing up the planet yet, but there's a lot of other, apocalyptic threats that are occurring with climate change and other stuff. So it's like, I don't know how much we've learned that much. I guess we have avoided an atomic bomb again, but I don't know. I don't feel the hopeful. I don't feel the hopeful, especially with these kind of leaders people are electing.
Yet. Jimmy says 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, Maude. I will say that in different parts of time, it is 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. I think currently it's 1 step forward, 5 steps back. Sometimes it's 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But it really does depend on the time and the era, but it's never full charge ahead. And it's never also full reverse, although right now feels like it is the most it has been in a bit. Darwin says we've changed from destruction from one main event to destruction from millions of small events. Everything's a threat now. Bernadette says, I read a little of Vonnegut's backstory after reading this book. His mother killed herself. Trigger warning. Soon after he was sent to fight in World War II, he became a prisoner of war and survived the Dresden bombings and made it home. Then his sister died of cancer and he adopted all of her children. Holy hell. I did not know any of that. Jeff said, this is why books like this are so important. The fact that they continue to remain relevant, I think, is the alarm bell. 1984, right? The quote that I have seen the most in the last few weeks is a 1984 quote about first they will literally tell you. What is the quote? I'm paraphrasing. You know how I go with direct quotes.
They told you not to believe what you saw with your eyes, basically.
What you saw with your eyes. Where is the Vonnegut Museum, Jimmy, that you went to? That sounds really cool. What's Kessler's syndrome, KP?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It is in space around Earth.
No.
There's thousands and thousands. There's thousands and thousands of satellites, but everything we put up there creates one more piece of debris, and at some point, two things are going to collide and make 1,000 pieces of debris, which are going to hit thousands of other satellites, which are going to create millions of pieces of debris, and within almost no time at all, every satellite in orbit will be destroyed, and there will be a cloud of billions of particles, all traveling at tens of thousands of miles per hour. So any satellite we go up will basically be instantly destroyed, and there will be no way to get to space or do anything in orbit for like a million years.
Cool.
And like one simulation that some scientists who are doing a study on recently said, like, yeah, we could be like a year away from this as we sit right now.
Yikes. Usually we have like,
there goes the internet.
That's what I will say. Like threats, usually it's like, well, we've got about 8 to 10 years to kind of course correct. And now it's like that window of effect is getting smaller and smaller. So that like instantaneous destruction is, I guess that was always the same with
but you know they're not going to deflect. Like there's no turning around. What was the thing Neil deGrasse Tyson said? Because they were talking about colonizing Mars, and he was like, "Look, if we have the technology to turn Mars into Earth, why don't we just use that technology on Earth
to make it better,
to turn Earth back into Earth?"
Yeah, right.
But they're not going to do that because there's no money in that. Hey, capitalism.
Hey, that's fun, everyone. Thanks so much for the conversation with all of this. Darwin says Vonnegut like Dickens, Twain, Hemingway. I can't with my brain.
Dostoevsky.
Thank you. Are important voices to still listen to today. Tosa Poster, was it Tosa Poster? Someone said, oh no, in Maude We Trust said, are you glad you finally read this book, Maude? I did tell my friend who gave me this book 15 years ago that I read it, and I did tell him that I actually didn't enjoy it, and he said that's actually funnier. It's funnier that you waited 15 years to read it and didn't actually like it. So if we needed a bit of good news today, that's it. All right, everyone, for February, we are reading 2 books. We are reading The Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and we are also reading I, Medusa by, it starts with an A, Ayana Gray? Ayana Gray? I should get more equipped on that one. Hoping to do more interviews, hoping to also bank a bunch of interviews in the month of February to roll out during March. March is going to be a tricky one for me. Ayana Gray, there you go, fantastic. Might have to figure out March because I am not going to be in the country, and we were going to be tackling the Wind and Truth, which is the size of a small building. So might have to do a bonus book, might have to just do a Discord call. Who knows? We'll figure it out, but we've got time to figure it out together. Darwin, thanks for being a new member and being being such a participant in the discussions. It was an absolute pleasure. Jeff, we do miss you in the Riverside. I've got to figure that out as well. But lovely to have your input, especially because you liked it and I didn't. So that was an inverse of what usually happens when you don't like it and I do. And I actually enjoy both versions of that because you were able to teach me about this book, which was a bit of a struggle for me, which I don't think surprises you. But I wish I'd read it instead of listening to it. And there are a couple of times where listening to a book has hurt me more than helped me. Not often, but it happens. Not the best book, but it led to great conversation. Yeah, surprisingly so. And we didn't really have too many tangents. It kind of stayed on target as well. So maybe I will publish this one. There you go. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to hang out with my Members Plus for a couple of minutes post-show to digest. I'll see everyone in the Discord in the interim. We should probably raid in the stream. I'll do that. I'll stop the stream first. I'll quickly do that. Okay, cool. Bye.